Yeah, the other one that is one that we feared going into the season, now we have started to see, which is a big crash, and Ollie Bearman involved in that. A lot of people over-celebrating in many ways. Thank goodness he wasn't hurt more, Scafey. But fair dinkum, let's go through the DNA of this thing, because this is a world of pain.
Well, look, we've been saying it, Paul, the whole time. The speed differential of the cars is just too much. Now, this was just an instance where he's come out of the corner and coming up in behind Colapinto, he actually didn't know where he was going. It's a relatively narrow piece of road. Whoa. He didn't know where he was going. He then makes the grass, and then you're completely out of control. So that was a 50G shunt. Now, just play that out. If you go to a place like Baku or Miami or Vegas or anywhere where you can't, Singapore, where you can't see around the corner, that's a much bigger shunt.
And there's
right?
no runoff.
And there's no runoff, exactly.
Yeah, straight into wall.
So the second thing about that is I bumped into Carl Reindler this morning at the airport. Carl Reindler was the guy from the FIA and Motorsport Australia who actually was at the scene of that crash.
Wow.
And he said it was a very, very big shunt. His comment straight away was, we've got to change something, and it does need to be changed.
Scafey, we're all blaming the equipment here and the system at the moment, but what's been overlooked is that he actually pressed the power button in this move. He was the one that demanded that extra 50 Ks, and his engineers even come out afterwards, Komatsu, and said that he misjudged it. So there was no clipping speed of the car in front. It wasn't slowing down. He's seen an opportunity. He's asked for more power, and that's the result. So does some of the responsibility have to fall on him?
Well, I don't agree with that at all, because he didn't have any road. That was the drama. So when he'd come out of the right-hander... when he's done this, so that was harvesting then. The car was harvesting before that. And then when the car moves slightly to the left, he then hasn't got any road. So he's ended up in the grass, and then you're a complete passenger. So at that point there, I don't blame him at all for that shunt. That is a monstrous shunt out of his control.
So inevitably we get into the regulation conversation. There's this month, a whole bunch of meetings here. What decisions do you think that have been made in the lead up to this season cause this?
Well, it's clearly this 50-50 charge, so the deployment versus harvesting, and the drivers don't know when it's going to happen. So the drivers are universally saying, so it's Alonso, it's Hamilton, it's Norris, it's Villeneuve especially, like they are the best drivers in the world, Paul, and what they're saying is they don't even mean to overtake. So they drive up behind someone, that car slows down, my car passes them, it's a highway pass. It is completely delusional. And they've got to fix it. I mean, they have to do something about it. Some of the quotes, Alonso said, overtaking these days is accidental.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Yeah, it just shouldn't be like that. Obviously, this has been forecast. It's now finally played out. There's been plenty of reaction. This is what some of the drivers had to say about what happened to Ollie Bearman.
You know, I think we've, as a group, warned the FAA what can happen, and this has been a really unfortunate result of a massive delta speed that we've never seen before in F1 until these new regulations.
You know, I think we understand as a sport there's a lot of things we need to tweak, a lot of things we need to change, and especially on safety grounds, yes, there's some things that need to be looked into pretty quickly.
Surprised, you know, when they said, no, we will sort out qualifying and leave the racing alone, because it's exciting. As drivers, we've been extremely vocal that the problem is not only qualifying, it's also racing. And we've been warning that this kind of accident was always going to happen. Here we were lucky there was escape road. Now imagine going to Baku or going to Singapore or going to Vegas and having this kind of closing speeds and crashes next to the walls. I hope it serves as an example and the teams listen to the drivers and not so much to the teams and people that said the racing was okay, because the racing is not okay.
He was in bad shape too, you could see as he got out of the car. I mean, that was, luckily, thankfully, he wasn't really injured critically at all, but he's got some fairly heavy bruising to his leg. And unsurprisingly, the FIA released a statement around the potential adjustments to the new regs. I actually thought this was fairly ambiguous. I thought they were just covering their backsides. They weren't really telling us about what the issues are and when they expect to look at them. I mean, what on earth does, yes, we're looking, but speculation around the nature of potential changes is premature. You just heard from the drivers then, they're demanding that they make some pretty radical changes with safety in mind right now, because the reality of this is we've got a free kick in that there's a month now where everyone can go back, try and get their heads around the new regs, the new power units. They need to make a decision about this now so that they can simulate what those changes look like to play out in real time when we go racing again in Miami. I mean, to think that they're going to take the next 3 weeks to make a decision on what the regs look like, so then everyone's got to apply it, you know, turning it around in 3 days. They made some regulation changes going into Japan. Had no impact. No. There's a bit of pressure, I would have thought, on the FAA right now to get on with this. We simply can't sit here for the next 3 weeks and not know where this is headed.
Well, but I mean, look, first sentence, one of the corporate wank words is out there already, right? Stakeholders, right? Okay, like again, we know who the single most important person here is, and it's the person in the car taking the physical risk. How many people taking the physical risk need to say something for something to happen? But Scafie, is there any architecture, Phelpsy, do we know anything about how these rule changes come about? Because the problem's obvious, but getting everyone to agree, and you've got people up the front saying nothing to see here, if you're up the arse end.
That's the point, Paul. The people up the front aren't saying anything. Every person you saw there was someone that's struggling. And if you look what Toto Wolff said on the weekend, mate, you can give me your impersonation. What was it? He said there's nothing wrong.
Everything is fantastic. Everything is fantastic. It's amazing.
Yeah, but hang on. But he did say, so his quote was, after qualifying, how can we make the one fast, brutal qualifying lap again? Yep. How do we get to reduce the lift and coast? That's something we definitely have to do. So that was his quote.
He's going to give out qualifying because they didn't do any good.
So have a look at this as a differential, right? This is just out of control. Colapinto, 70 kilometres an hour delta.
Blimey.
I mean, average was about 55k. Like that is out of control stuff.
Correct.
And when you're dealing with it, so not only are you dealing with it, we saw some really good vision in qualifying. When they go through 130R, cars doing 325k, they come out the other side, they're doing 50k slower.
Ridiculous.
It used to be a brave corner. Yeah. I mean, seriously, we have wrecked this up. This is what it is. So this is arguably the best driver in the world, 325k, turns the fast left-hander, come off the back at 275k.
Wow.
That's why they're saying the chef can drive the car now. It is a joke.
But is it really affecting the product? I think that's the thing that we've got to look at as well. I say, if you take the Mercs out of that race on the weekend, it was a bloody good race. There was a lot of interesting stuff going on. The battle between the guys coming second and third was outstanding. And if it wasn't for the guy that was 14 seconds up the road, we would have had a corker. And I can tell you right now, ratings aren't being affected anywhere. It was a record Japan viewership here in Australia, and it's like that around the world. People are buying in and watching it. So safety, yeah, I get that. But racing, I think it's more bringing Mercedes back to the pack that will make it more interesting.
I couldn't disagree more.
Wouldn't be the first time, would it?
It is. Well, no, it's just not right. I mean, when you have all the best drivers in the world complaining about the safety part, it has to be fixed. First part.
Yep.
Second thing is, I'm not worried at all about the differential between Mercedes and McLaren, because on the weekend we had a good race.
Yep.
If it wasn't for a safety car, it would have been a cracking race. So I'm not worried about that at all.
We don't know that. It was
But
half
if
a
you're losing
second,
50
half a
k's in a
second
corner.
lap quicker when it got in front.
When
That's
the
a
name of the
huge
game
slogging.
is speed and you're losing it, I think there's a problem. And I think, you know, they're two sort of separate issues if we're going to deal with. Yep, there's what's happening in racing and getting the most out of these power units. There's also what's happening in qualifying and the fact that we've really taken away the essence of what qualifying is all about, which is right on the ragged edge, trying to maximise performance and speed out of the car. Now,